charges as amended pursuant to stipulation by counsel for the defendant and the state. The sum of $608 will be forfeited. One half would be applied to fines and costs. The other half would be would go to the law enforcement trust fund, the city police department.
Mr. Gentiles, this agreement as defense understands it.
That is, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any objection to the matter of amendment being proposed by the state?
No, Your Honor. Just to restate, my client prepared to enter pleas of guilty to both the amended count 1 as well as the misdemeanor first degree possession of a criminal tool, and the $608 is stipulated to be forfeited.
Mr. Logan, you're entering pleas of guilty to 2 first-degree misdemeanors. That means in each case you could potentially be incarcerated up to 6 months, fined up to $1,000 or both. Do you understand this?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand that if I accept your pleas, the cases will be concluded today. There won't be any preliminary hearing conducted. There will be no trial. There will be no jury trial. You have up those rights. The right to question witnesses, subpoena witnesses, the right to require the state to prove the allegations beyond a reasonable doubt, the right to not testify, the right to appeal. All those rights are waived.
Yes, Your Honor.
Has anybody forced you to do that?
No, sir.
Anyone promise you anything in exchange for your plea that's not been mentioned?
No, sir.
Do you feel as though, and have you had enough time to speak with Mr. Gentile concerning your options?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll make a finding that your plea is knowingly and voluntarily tendered to the charges as amended. I'll further find all defects have been waived concerning the manner of amendment. The amendments are approved, your pleas are accepted. I'll find you guilty of an attempted trafficking offense as well as a first-degree misdemeanor possession of criminal tools offense. State which be heard concerning sentence.
Just briefly, Your Honor, pursuant to discussions in chambers, as I believe the court is aware, there may be there will probably be filed a felony probation violation in Cuyahoga County. I have no reason to suspect that this defendant has a personal drug issue. We are satisfied with a suspended sentence with credit for time served.
Mr. Gentile.
Your Honor, I echo those statements. As the court is aware, Mr. Logan is currently under supervision to the Adult Parole Authority in Cleveland. We anticipate further action on their end in the upcoming days, and would ask again for a stipulated suspended sentence.
Mr. Logan, I'm just going to make a couple comments. I'm aware you're not from the area, but it would seem to me that having witnessed firsthand what you experienced recently, I would hope that you'd give you a reason to kind of take a step back and kind of consider the path you're on and the life that you're leading. You keep doing what you're doing, and it's inevitable a certain sequence of events are going to occur. Inevitable. It's nobody's that smart, nobody's that lucky. That's what it comes down to. And I'm hoping, as I said, you use this time to make some decisions in your life. So when you take some steps to maybe insulate yourself from this type of activity, in this lifestyle in general. The fine will be $500 in each case. We'll do 180 days in each case, run concurrent. Second aspect of the sentences is that further plea agreement defendant forfeits all right to claim the $608 that was found on him secured as evidence in the case. 304 shall be forwarded to the court for payment on fines and court costs. The other 304 shall be applied to the APD. Is there further to suggest this month?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wade, do you understand if I accept your plea, the case will be concluded. There will be no further proceedings. You're going to give up the right to a trial, to a jury trial, to question witnesses, subpoena witnesses, to require the state to prove the allegation. Anyone promise you anything in exchange for your plea that's not been mentioned?
No.
Do you feel as though right now you're under the influence of anything that would affect your thinking?
No.
Have you had enough time to speak with Mr. Capal concerning your options here?
Yes.
I'll make a finding that your plea is knowingly and voluntarily tendered to the charge as amended. I will accept your plea, find you guilty. State what you heard concerning sentence.
Your Honor, the drug in question that was purchased and possessed by the defendant was meth. I believe that under these circumstances, the defendant should be sent for an assessment and that he should be required to follow any treatment recommendations.
Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wade informed me he spent 1 day in jail before he bonded out. He's previously worked for Sterling Company in Pennsylvania. He's been off for medical leave. He had a back problem. He had an infection in his back. He informed me he has no other pending legal matters at this time. He would cooperate with any evaluation.
Mr. Wade, are you still residing at 638 Broad Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Wade, I'm sure you heard some of my comments to the gentleman that preceded you. The goal here is just not to see, again, the same situation. Every contact you have with the system, one way of looking at it informs me what hasn't worked. Okay? You keep coming back, then I know that, maybe fining you isn't going to work, or suspending jail isn't going to work, or whatever. So you have control over how this turns out, or at least I'm going to try to give it to you. How you use that control is really your decision. The state has recommended an assessment. I agree. If you're found with meth and it's indicative of use, then I think that an assessment is a good starting point. I'd ask that you go into it with an open mind. I don't know that you were 9 years old and you thought about being in the position you're in right now. So really, there is a period in your life where you weren't using, and there is a period in your life where if you desire to put some effort into it, you can return to. It's just a question of whether you want to. That's what the assessment's all about. The fine will be a $500 fine initially. Costs are $95. Will be an overall 90-day jail term imposed. I will credit 1 day, suspend 89 days, and $250 of the fine on condition. One, that there is no drug offense of any type. And I'd like you to follow all recommendations concerning treatment. Do you have any questions at this time?
No.
Mr. Paul? And Mrs. Slater?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, good luck, sir. Be incarcerated up to 18 months. You can be fined up to $5,000 or both. Do you understand this? Now, this offense is classified by law as being what we call an enhanceable offense. What that means is once you've been convicted of an offense such as this, if you ever have a second offense in your lifetime, the second offense penalty can be increased to that of a felony just because of the prior conviction. Now, in this case, the state is alleging that let's see, Samantha Winters was pregnant at the time. That's an enhancing allegation. In other words, they would have to prove that in order to make it a felony offense that they've alleged. But once you have a conviction of this type on your record, if anything of a domestic violence nature ever happens again, it can be charged at a higher level, because you have a prior conviction. The second thing you need to be aware of is that if you're convicted on this charge, federal law may prohibit you from ever owning, shipping, handling, possessing, transporting a firearm or ammunition ever again in your lifetime. Okay? Now, you do have certain rights whenever you come to court. Ma'am, I'm going to ask that you listen to these rights as well. They will apply to your case when your case is before me. If you have any questions, just kind of keep them in your mind. Alert me to your question when your case is called. I'll be happy to address it. Now, you've been called here today to make your initial appearance. You're not going to be asked to enter a plea, but I'm going to ask you, do you intend to hire an attorney? Do you have the money to do that? Okay. Do you think you'll be able to come up with a $25 filing fee to make application for an appointed attorney? Okay, I'd like you to fill out an affidavit. That's going to give the court the information it needs to make that decision. Now, there is a condition of the bond that there is no contact by direct or indirect means. Do you have any questions? Okay, well, you'll be back here within 5 to 10 days at the outside. All right, good luck. You are Christopher LaTorres?
Yes, sir.
Mr. LaTorres, you're here on several matters. You have a felony of the second degree, alleged complicity to illegal assembly of chemicals for the manufacture of methamphetamine. This is a second degree felony. If you're found guilty, you could be incarcerated up to 8 years in the state penitentiary. You could also be fined up to $15,000 or both. Do you understand this? You're here on an obstructing justice charge. If you're found guilty there, you could be incarcerated up to a year. You could be fined up to $2,500 or both on that charge. Okay. Now, the first charge, the complicity to illegal assembly, carries with it a mandatory license suspension of not less than 6 months, not more than 5 years if you're found guilty. So do you understand that aspect of it?
Yes, sir.
There's an alleged trafficking in heroin, which is a 5th-degree felony. If you're found guilty, you could be incarcerated up to a year, fined up to $2,500 or both. An alleged possession of heroin, a 5th-degree felony. If you're found guilty, you could be incarcerated up to a year, fined up to $2,500 or both. Now, the drug offenses carry with it the mandatory license suspension that I mentioned earlier, minimum 6 months, maximum 5 years. Allegation is possession of acetaminophen with hydrocodone. This is alleged to be a 1st-degree misdemeanor. If you're found guilty there, you can be incarcerated up to 6 months, fined up to $1,000. Resisting arrest, which is a 2nd-degree misdemeanor. If you're found guilty there, you can be incarcerated up to 90 days, fined up to $750. Again, you have that mandatory license suspension that I spoke of that would be applicable to the drug offense.
Here.
Domestic violence is classified by what we call it as an enhancement offense. Once you've been convicted of domestic violence, if you ever have a second offense in your lifetime, the second offense penalty can be increased to that of a felony just because of the prior conviction. So you understand the increasing nature of the penalties involved there. You're also to be advised that the conviction of that type under federal law would prohibit you from ever owning, shipping, handling, transporting, possessing a firearm or ammunition ever again. You have a charge of obstructing official business. If you're found guilty there, you can be incarcerated up to 90 days, fined up to $750 or both. Charge of criminal trespassing, 4th-degree misdemeanor. If you're found guilty there, you can be incarcerated up to 30 days, fined up to $250 or both. And you have a charge of driving under suspension, which is a 1st-degree misdemeanor. If you're found guilty of that offense, you can be incarcerated up to 6 months, fined up to $1,000 or both. Now, in each of these matters, you have certain rights. I'm going to go over these rights with you. Now, do you intend to hire an attorney? Do you have the money to do that? Do you want me to consider whether or not you may be eligible for appointing counsel? All right, what I'm going to suggest you do is fill out an affidavit that's going to give me the information I need to make that decision. With your permission, I'll put you down for no plea on your felony charges, not guilty on your misdemeanor charges. We'll set them all for one single hearing. The felonies will be set for a preliminary hearing. The misdemeanors will be set for a pretrial. But that'll give the attorneys a chance to talk about the whole mix, and maybe they can come up with something. The key thing that you need to be concerned with is get that $25 filing fee paid before your preliminary hearing. Why that's important is if you haven't posted bond and you're eligible for an attorney, you'll be returned to the jail, and there'll be a delay in your case where you could. The second set of felonies, bond will be $15,000, also 10% more cash surety bond. Bond and the misdemeanor charges of, let's see here, possession of acetaminophen hydrocodone. Bond will be $4,500, 10% or cash surety. Traffic matter will be $2,500, 10% or cash surety. All these cases, again, are going to be set at the same time. And just make sure you get your attorney involved for your preliminary hearing. Okay? All right, good luck.